Coming up on Double Feature, what is happening with the donations? Tune in to find out this time on Double Feature.
Well, boys, looks like we started the fun without me.
You're all sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
My name is Eric. With me is expert on all things feature, Michael Kester.
Hey, how are you?
Michael Kester, I have done something terrible that I want to tell you about.
What's that?
We have two movies coming up this time. What are the movies?
We're doing Tremors and The Fog. John Carpenter's The Fog.
Well, you can't just John Carpenter's The Fog and then be like, oh, and some people who made Tremors, because that kind of short sells Tremors.
Well, I just wanted to specify that it wasn't the shitty remake.
Oh, yeah, the new remake. So that has a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it does.
Poor Maggie Grace. Anyways, the terrible thing I did the other day, and the reason this will be such a fantastic double feature. Have you heard of Alice in Wonderland?
It's
the
story?
The new thing that came out with the mime face paint makeup and
Which version?
The Tim Burton.
Oh.
And yeah, that was fucking terrible.
Yeah, that's rough.
I
That's a
watched
rough
that
ride.
yesterday, and I didn't think I'd be able to continue doing a weekly show about movies after that.
Yeah, that was not a fun time.
So soulless and crushing, and I just. But now we have Tremors and The Fog,
That's
which
right.
by comparison, if I make these movies sound as if they are the two greatest films ever created, now you have some knowledge as to why that is.
Right.
Well, what was the idea of pairing up Tremors and The Fog?
I think we were kind of trying to pair up environmental danger. fear
Our type, the double feature type of environmental. No,
Yeah.
fuck this 2012 stuff.
Yeah.
This is environmental disaster at
Absolutely.
its finest. Or is it? And that's something we'll talk about. And we're going to spoil both of these disaster films. We're going to spoil Tremors, so if you haven't seen that, skip right on over to The Fog. And you know what? If you haven't seen The Fog, then skip, back to Tremors and listen to it again. You can use the chapters menu to do that, because there's chapters, of course. And those are accessible from all sorts of various Apple and Windows devices, but still not the Zune, unfortunately.
Sorry, Zune.
So we begin with Tremors. And Tremors marks the return of the lazy Sunday afternoon movies on Double Feature.
Yeah.
This was a staple of season 1 of our show.
Yeah.
And it went away during season 2, probably because we found more legitimate films that
Right.
we didn't catch on TBS, the Superstation.
Uh-huh.
But it's TNT that's the lazy Sunday
TNT
afternoon
and
one.
WGN if you're a network baby.
Oh,
like
is that
I
what
was.
that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't actually remember, because I never sat down to watch lazy Sunday movies. I just walked into a room when
Exactly.
they were on. What defines these movies?
I think
Have we talked about one in specific before, or have we just mentioned that this is a phenomena that exists?
Gremlins.
Gremlins was one, sure.
Gremlins is
Yeah.
definitely one. I think Child's Play kind of has a vibe there.
Yeah, some of those. Yeah,
But
some of those.
It's
or certainly
usually-
more than the
it's
other
usually,
slashers do.
Like Gremlins is a great example, and Tremors is another great example. It's usually these horror movies that aren't scary,
Right.
And they're family
Yeah,
friendly,
all
and the
right.
villain is equal parts cute and evil.
Okay. All right. But I kind of got that feeling from House of a Thousand Corpses a little bit.
Yeah, there's
It
a
turned
vibe
into
there.
a little
Yeah.
monster stuff at the end too, and I'm still not sure why it felt like that. It might be the kind of thing where I can turn off mentally a little bit.
Yeah.
And what's being presented to me is very visual and conceptual, and you just feel like you're part of that.
Yeah.
Tremors is the kind of thing where you just identify as one of the townspeople.
Yeah.
You're one of the townspeople, and you're trying to get through this thing, and
Uh-huh.
that's what's going on there. But you know what? I don't think House of a Thousand Corpses did that. I'm going to treat House of a Thousand Corpses as the anomaly as to why I don't understand the lazy Sunday afternoon film. But all right, so I think you hit on a couple things. I think it's safe.
Yeah.
I think there's, a lot of times it's monsters.
Yeah, it's visual.
But
It's got to
they're-
be something that's going to keep you watching the screen.
Right.
Because if it's a bunch of people talking, you're going to walk out, you're going to get yourself another bag of chips, forget what you were watching,
Right.
and end up standing out on your front stoop.
Right. Well, and part of it is the kind of quality that you can drop in and drop out.
Mhm.
Of the films we so consistently call great films on the show are not films that you can just walk into, watch a scene, oh, that was nice, and walk out.
Yeah.
But a movie like Tremors, it's about surviving.
It's
you kind of come
constantly
in,
about staying away from the graboids.
Right.
Not called Tremors.
no, not
by
the
way.
Tremors. Now, a mistake that I'm sure I will make all the time,
Well,
because
that's fine,
just
as
the
long
kind
as
of thing
before
that,
I jump the gun on you and say that we here on Double Feature acknowledge that the creatures are called graboids and that they in fact create tremors in the ground.
absolutely, the tremor is the effect, not the creature itself. But you know what I mean. You're surviving with these characters, so you come in and they're shooting up some graboids, not some tremors. And then you head off to your kitchen, you make a sandwich, and then you come back and they're shooting some more, and that's fine. It's your survival instinct, not the math part of your brain that's
Right.
working during a film
Exactly.
like Tremors. So I was trying to put my finger on what this film was as I started watching it for the first time. And at first, the Grapes of Wrath thing is kind of
Yeah.
prevalent. You
Yeah.
feel maybe because they're driving the truck around, it's got all the
Well,
stuff
and
in it.
they're hard up for money, and
Yeah,
they're
right.
doing odd jobs. They're kind of just making ends meet the
Right.
entire time.
So at first I was thinking, all right, so we have Grapes of Wrath meets Critters. That's what's going
Pretty
on
much.
here. But then I started thinking it's really Dukes of Hazzard with sandworms.
Yeah.
That seemed more that, and maybe that's part of the lazy Sunday quality of it. But you have these characters who, how do you describe a group of characters like that?
It's just it's a bunch of stereotypes.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of film It's essentially all the B characters that never
B
get any
characters, that's what-
screen
yep.
time.
Yeah, they're
in your
all B
film.
characters.
This is their village. They
Yep.
all actually live in Perfection Valley, and then they drive out to these other films you've seen them in.
It's the sexual harassment panda episode of South Park, the land of misfit mascots.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's all the B movie stars, or something from Super Beasto that we kind of saw, that bar where they all the monsters kind of come together, and you have a lot of the B movie stars.
Right.
But Tremors was a lot more southern than I thought it
Yeah.
would be. It has this sort of southern rock quality to
Yep.
it. If you just wanted to talk about the two characters who are in the Grapes of Wrath truck, I mean, what kind of, because I have a hard time figuring out them, what that is besides Dukes of Hazzard.
Right.
That's
Well,
just
you
always
have-
my go-to for
You
that.
have Kevin Bacon, who plays the hot shot shooting from the hip,
Right.
never has a plan guy.
Yeah.
And then you have the older, wiser, always has a plan guy.
Sure.
That's it. It's kind of the, why are you always such a hot shot? I know what I'm doing. And I mean, obviously, that
Right.
the hot shot will come through in the end with the plan that is my favorite part of the film, easily.
Those are our two characters who in any other film would be henchmen.
Yeah.
They would be bumbling
Absolutely.
henchmen is what they would
Yep.
be. But there is a sort of camaraderie between them, almost something like out of Serenity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like they're traveling across the fucking
But
galaxy
they're
together.
begrudged to be
Yes.
together the whole
Yeah, right.
time.
Like
They're
it's an
they're stuck
assignment.
they're stuck in a boat.
Right. Which isn't the case at all. It's not like they have a real assignment that puts them together. It's just that there's only 7 people in the town.
Pretty much.
So the fact that they have to stay with one another is it's essential, and they still treat it's their own choice, but they treat it like they've been assigned that task.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from the country western southern harmonica, which I feel like as much as the setting is, it's desert and it's small town, it's also this southwestern rock stuff. It's the guitar and the harmonica that make up as much of the setting as the local bar or the pig markets or whatever else is going on in
The
this
Asian
town.
run convenience store.
Yeah, right. So set up Perfection Valley for me. Where is this place? What is
Perfection Valley is in the American Southwest. It's surrounded by mountains.
it? Right. It sounds like Stepford Wives, Perfection Valley, but that's not it at all.
No.
It's too dirty. It's too dusty.
It's surrounded by mountains. There's maybe 7 buildings in the entire town, and it's compiled of everybody. It's compiled of the typical Mexican guy, the typical Asian guy,
right.
the typical teenager who thinks he's funny, the typical hot geologist.
Yes.
And
Wait, what?
Oh, sorry. So there's a hot geologist.
All right,
in
we'll
this
come
film.
back to the hot geologist. But sorry, what characters?
And
you're
then
talking
finally, the typical, gunslinging duo who
Right.
are the Y2K ready people
Yeah.
who are ready for Y2K far before Y2K was ever a problem and
Yeah.
far after Y2K was never a problem.
the survivalists. And that is literally not only your cast of characters, but I believe every single person who lives in the
There's
town.
a little girl in a pogo stick.
Yeah, yeah, the little girl in the pogo stick is the only other person who exists in this town who, but she still gets screen time.
Yep.
She gets her little moments here and there. I don't believe that there is a single character we haven't seen. I don't believe, if you told me there were more, I would not believe that they exist.
Yeah.
I think everyone in the town is in this tiny group, and that's it. That's all of them. It's something that reminds me immediately of Maximum Overdrive. We'll talk about that on the Music Box Massacre show. But that's it's a movie where the trucks, the cars, the automobiles are the antagonists against this small collective group of people. The slasher movie type group of people. Your group that the final girl eventually ends up coming from. But that's as close as this gets, really, from slasher territory.
Right.
Also kind of reminds me of, I know we'll be talking about John Carpenter with The Fog, but The Thing, where we had that, we talked about that on the show, where we had that small group of people. Also Feast. Yeah. Another one we hit on the show where it's just, here's your small group of people you want to survive against this ridiculous threat. And it's just normal everyday people. They appear to have special skill sets, but no more than a crashed on the island type, Gilligan's Island kind of scenario where you do this and you do this and you do this. We all have these tasks. But at the end of the day,
that's all it is. It's just roles.
It's the kind of thing where if we were taking a bus downtown and the bus got stranded in some kind of apocalyptic scenario, somehow everyone on the bus would have some profession that is incredibly relevant to this the apocalyptic scenario we now found ourselves in. But then there's also this side of it that kind of feels like Big Trouble in Little China, just because of how ridiculous it is and how underprepared the time. It's almost like if you stop to think about Tremors for too long, you would realize that there must be some simple fix to the situation. But there isn't, because we don't have time for that. We just gotta keep going with the resources at hand. It's not what's the perfect tool for this job. It's here's a bunch of tools we have. Let's throw them at the sandworms until something sticks. So among this cast of characters is the new geologist in town.
Right.
Can we talk about Just So Happens?
Well, the geologist is the perfect example of Just So Happens.
Yeah.
Tremor is the definition of a perfect storm as far as the storyline goes. Everything that happens in Tremors is it's just a series of perfect coincidences. And which we have titled Just So Happens. Because, just so happens there's a truck trailer over there next to my tractor. Just so happens a geologist came into town that can read a seismograph. Yeah,
a seismograph, right? So we have some pig farmers. We have people who operate the drugstore and sell you the, $2 fizzy soda. And then we have the geologist, who doesn't seem to belong with, apparently she's going to a school that doesn't actually exist within the fiction of the film.
Right.
And she's there. She just so happens to be there. And she investigates seismographs.
Right.
It's a skill set that is so extremely particular to one thing. You almost know right then and there what Tremors is going to be about, because you're handed hey, look at this quirky job position that I have. This very, very specific tiny margin, the skill. What could that possibly be used for, Michael?
Apparently it's used to monitor not only the whereabouts of the graboids, but how many there are based on a complex analysis of when the readings went off, which is as simple as this one went off at 2 minutes and it was over here. And this one went off at 2 minutes and 2 seconds later and it was way, way far. There must be more than one. And turns out there's 4.
Yes. I'm not overwhelmed by the fact there's 4 of them. I still don't feel like this is much of a threat.
The thing about there only being 4 graboids is kind of, it's kind of sad in the fact that you don't even find out there are 4 until after they've killed the first one.
Yes.
So they kill the first one by mistake. This is a horrible setup for your monster. You kill one by mistake.
Whoops.
And then, oh no, there's 3 more. Maybe if we all just run toward this canal 3 times.
Right.
Which, again, that goes back to what would be the best solution. Go back to that canal and have all 4 of them run into the fucking canal. But, you got to keep it interesting. You've got a bunch of characters. None of them are intelligent, which is a really strong point, except the geologist, but she doesn't really know anything about the creatures, and she's not answering any questions.
The profession, as you mentioned, of a couple of these people, the couple runs the gun shop, right?
It's not even a gun shop; it's just their fucking house.
Oh yeah, I guess it's not. It's a. I keep thinking of it as an armory, but it's it's just their home. It's where they reside. It's because in a town this small, you just associate everyone is living at their little convenience store, their little beat up shack. This has to be some of the worst treatment of weaponry. I
Yeah.
think. When did we do Shotgun 101? Was that Terminator?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so we complained about the fact that in movies, oftentimes the shotguns just use slugs, even though buckshot is far more common, and they use buckshot when it's convenient. They never make any distinction. We basically talked about how shotguns typically work in movies versus in real life. I don't know what the most egregious thing is here. I mean, we have silence hunting rifles.
Yeah.
We have the elephant rifle. I mean, okay. So they're shooting all the weapons from the hip. That can be forgiven in movies. But they make a big deal out of this elephant gun, right? This giant fucking shotgun of an elephant rifle, which would pretty much blow off your arms if you didn't shoot it in a way that you were stationed. And they're just kind of running around, shooting it from the hip with no kind of aim. It's just completely ridiculous. That whole scene, there's just an awkward amount of, there's an awkwardly small amount of action coming from where you first get in the arsenal scene.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're taking this thing out, it's busted through the wall, and you have, what's supposed to be a badass shot of all of these guns out on the wall. And they're all just making these little pop sounds, and they don't appear to have any kick, and they're not doing anything to the monster. Something about that scene, there's so much badassery, but at the same time, it's so incredibly weak.
And then eventually the monster just goes, ugh, and it's dead.
Yep.
And then 2 down. I mean, you're at 2 down.
And that scene ends in a extremely awkward celebration scene, where the celebration is almost weaker than the gun.
So what ends up happening that's really strange is it comes back to the people on the roof, and it shows each individual person's reaction. Right. But it's as if they're acting like the one in particular is the dude with the fucking baseball cap. Yeah. He's like, "All right." Yeah. And he's swinging his baseball cap at the fucking camera.
You don't believe that they're all celebrating at the same time.
Right. Exactly.
They drug each of the actors out in the middle of their lunch break and said, "You're going to film your celebration now, so just do something celebratory."
Right.
The film makes up for scenes like this when it does something incredibly inventive, like when they have the car buried under the ground.
Yes.
When you start unearthing that and it's the car's headlights, it's buried. I guess it's buried facing up.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to talk about the orientation of that.
The graboid pulls the car from the rear into the ground.
Yeah.
So the car's vertical underground with the headlights at ground level.
Yeah, and eventually the characters get on track too once they build the pipe bombs.
Right.
Then they kind of figure out what's going on there.
Well, so right around the pipe bombs is where I really want to talk about what I love about Tremors. And it's that most of the time you're running from the ground.
Yeah.
You very rarely ever see a graboid. You only see it fully once in the glorious ending scene, which we'll get to very soon.
Right.
But I like the fact that the fear, even though everybody's afraid of the graboids, it's an adult version of fucking hot lava from recess in 2nd grade.
Yeah, sure.
Where you just don't touch the ground.
Yep.
You don't know why you don't touch the ground in 2nd grade. Turns out it's because there's graboids under it.
Yeah.
But I just like that all of these characters have somehow divorced themselves from these monstrous beasts that have come out of nowhere and are instead preoccupied with keep your feet off the ground.
Yeah, as if that makes any sense either. They keep talking about sound waves. You can jump on a rock, you can jump on a house, sometimes you can shout and sometimes you can't. But they talk about it as if shouting from the rooftop of a house would cause more vibrations than if you're jumping on top of a tiny rock.
Exactly. And there's this whole thing, I mean, it dispels the theory from when we were children where if you're wearing shoes, that doesn't count as being on the lava because your shoes are touching the lava.
You played with a bunch of fucking cheaters. That's what happened there.
Well, and that's what I like about this film is that it's very clear that if the graboid can eat you from where you are, then you're in the wrong spot.
The answer here was to just have everyone run in opposite directions. Pretty much, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a very humane answer, but by the end of the film, so many of the people have been eaten that it would have made more sense numbers-wise to just say, if we all run in opposite directions, they won't catch all of us, and to just completely take off.
But instead what they do is they all retreat to these rocks, which the graboids can't get them on because they're deep and the graboids can't burrow through rock. The whole goal is to get to the mountains.
Yeah.
And so they kill one by fishing with a pipe bomb, which it's a really smart idea. I mean, it's entertaining, and you get a big gory pumpkin splat all over all the characters. But then the final graboid is left, and it's the injured one that tried to eat their truck.
Yeah.
It's kind of this weird arch enemy thing.
It's a Jaws thing. The Jaws stuff where the shark has a personal vendetta.
Yeah. So there's this scene where essentially the three leads, geologist girl, Kevin Bacon, and old man friend.
Yes.
Because, I mean, in this film, characters don't need names.
Old man friend, that's fine.
So they're all standing there, one pipe bomb left, and Kevin Bacon could use that pipe bomb to make the monster run away, and they can safely get back to the rock where they will probably eventually starve to death.
Yeah.
Or the alternative is what he comes up with. He starts fucking running, and the monster is hot on their trail, goddamn graboid smoke coming out of the sand.
Yeah, this time they smoke.
And
not always, but this time.
And so he throws the pipe bomb just past the graboid. He misses the graboid. And everybody's like, "You idiot! That was our last pipe bomb." And the bomb goes off, and the graboid freaks out, scared of the loud noise, and speeds up, and you see it come crashing
right.
out of the side of this canyon.
Only then do they realize the genius of his plan.
And it's just this massive fucking bus of a worm that splats in a gross, gory, slimy finish on the rocks below. And then they're saved by the plan that the guy who never comes up with a plan has put together.
The thing I love about those characters, I mean, here's Kevin Bacon's character, who is a complete fucking moron.
Right.
And in this scene, we see that all of the other morons are stupider than he is. You're just operating at such a low level. It's like watching children, you know? Right. It's like watching the plans that children, that first-year fucking students, that people who have no idea what they're talking about come up with. And you're just sitting back from afar going, man, if these people weren't so dumb, they could do something a lot easier. So this is kind of weird for us to talk about on the show, because Tremors, there's a lot of films in this series.
Yeah.
But you have desperately resisted doing a Tremors Killapalooza.
Yeah.
And when you say you don't want to do a Killapalooza, then I believe you. Right. We did Children of the Corn together, but when you, Michael Kester, say no Killapalooza on this one, I am right there behind you. But tell me why. Why no Killapalooza with Tremors?
Well, I feel like, first off, our Killapalooza limit was originally 5, and we have since rescinded it to 4.
But only when completely awesome to do so.
And so...
Although they're working on a 5th Tremors film. I mean, we could have waited it out.
But remember, the 4th Tremors film is a prequel.
Oh, yeah, fuck
it's
that noise.
It's a prequel, and it doesn't... I mean, it's goofy, and it's fun, and it's enjoyable, but it doesn't really pack the same punch that I feel like. I feel like the first trilogy is all right, and I really enjoy that it's all made by the same 3 guys. It's written by the same 3 guys. Yeah. They alternate directing. I'm really in love with that concept that it's a franchise child of these 3 men. But I feel like it kind of gets a little bit campy. I feel like the most important thing to talk about is the first film, because they eventually start using CG, and there's ass blasters and evolutions, and it kind of gets convoluted. And what I really like is the simplicity of the first film, and I like that it's all practical effects, and that a lot of the practical effects are shake the dirt up.
Yeah, you know, you just slid right by that one there, but when you were describing these movies to me, and you're just like, this happens, and ass blasters, and I will, wait, hold on, go back here, what? And I thought you were just bullshitting me, but apparently there's really something called ass blasters, so that's fantastic.
Third film, ass blasters.
So what you're saying is that we would gain basically nothing by watching the entire franchise.
They're not bad. They're enjoyable. I mean, I would suggest that Podmanity would watch them in their free time because they're enjoyable, but I don't think that they would bring anything to the show, and we would just be wasting a Killapalooza that we could be spending on, say, fucking Wishmaster.
You know what else makes this kind of in line with some of the slasher stuff we've done? Is that there is a TV series based on Tremors. So as we were watching this, we're all kind of going, wasn't there some TV Tremors thing going on at some point? And unlike the Friday the 13th series, which had nothing to do with Jason, really, this was closer to the Robert Englund TV series, Freddy's Nightmares.
Right.
In that it actually it kept the same world and the same mythology. Apparently it was about the cast of characters learning to live, to coexist with the graboids, and it had Christopher Lloyd in it from Back to the Future.
Wow.
Well, because it was on the Sci-Fi Channel. Okay. I believe that's when he was just on retainer at the Sci-Fi Channel,
gotcha.
And they would just put him into any fucking show that came on the air. But it got kind of the Firefly treatment where they aired it all fucking out of order and it didn't make any sense. And I don't know if it really caught on. I think it ran for a full season out of order and made everyone angry.
I'd watch that show.
The great thing about not doing Tremors as a Killapalooza is we can talk about a different franchise now, because
Right.
that's about as much Tremors as I needed, is
Yeah.
one solid film of
Right,
Tremors.
for sure.
But now we have The Fog. Where is this in relation to the other John Carpenter stuff?
Well, it's pretty early on. It's still in the 70s. It came out
Yeah.
in 1979, which is after Dark Star, after Halloween, after Assault on Precinct 13, but that's it. I mean,
That's
it's his
after
fourth
the
film.
Elvis TV movie
with
as
Kurt
well,
Russell,
right?
yeah. And then everything after that, The Thing, Escape, basically everything we've done on the show.
Escape from New York came right after this,
Right.
right? Yeah, and then The Thing and stuff, sure.
All of that has come after.
So this is right about the Halloween days, right?
Yeah.
When he was directing the first Halloween, but not directing the second one.
Right.
Writing and producing
Yeah.
and stuff on that. Sandwich kind of right in between there. And the definite way to tell that is probably from your cast of characters that shows
it's
up.
pretty obvious.
You have Jamie Lee Curtis as
Mhm.
Elizabeth. I cannot get enough young, awesome Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
I guess Jamie Lee Curtis in general, because we saw her in H2O, and
Right.
she's fucking
She's great in that,
fantastic
too.
in that. But when Jamie Lee Curtis was pretending to be a scream queen for a very brief period, I mean, she had an alright career doing that stuff.
Yeah, she did.
She could have gone on to do a bunch of these films, but when we think back to our scream queens, they don't always have 4 films under their belt.
Right.
Sometimes they do 2 or 3 films, and they serve their purpose in their particular franchise, and that's all you need. Think back to Nancy. I mean,
Right.
that you just
Right.
need to remember Nancy specifically from those movies, and that, man, she fucking earned her rank right there. And that's how I feel about Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
I mean, that Halloween stuff just fucking earned that. And then, of course, also in Terror Train, so
Yeah.
you got a little bonus of some more Jamie Lee
Right,
Curtis
Prom Night
stuff.
too.
Oh man, Prom Night. Yeah, so whatever. I'm going to call Jamie Lee Curtis a scream queen. Is that all right?
Yes,
have
absolutely.
Have I offended
She
the
is
slasher
queen of
gods?
scream queens.
But there's some more cast in this.
Yeah.
Some cast that you love.
There is. So Adrienne Barbeau is in this.
Yeah, from Escape from New
Escape
York.
From New York.
Seen
So
from the
actually,
other stuff.
something that I don't know, but around this time, Adrienne Barbeau was married to somebody who was involved with the making of this film. So Adrienne Barbeau and John Carpenter got hooked up.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I know he was involved with Deborah Hill, who wrote some of the stuff,
Right.
who wrote a lot of stuff
Right.
with him.
But she was married to John Carpenter, and I still think, even now, that she is one of the hottest creatures to ever walk the
You
planet.
know, every time you say that on the show, we get hate mail.
That's fine.
Are you
And
aware of that?
everybody's fucking wrong.
All
so
right.
fuck you. So Adrienne Barbeau is in this. We have Hal Holbrook, who plays the father, the priest.
Yeah.
And Tom Adkins is in it, who we saw in Halloween 3.
The weird one.
Right.
Halloween 3, the weird one, not Tom
Halloween-
Atkins, the weird one.
Well,
Debatable.
right.
You're forgetting a huge one. The Fog.
Oh, right.
Which is not actually an actor in this
well,
film.
maybe. I mean,
Yeah, we'll talk about The Fog. We'll get to The Fog. I'm saving all of my environmental fog conversation because that's something I still don't know how I feel about it, and maybe if I just talk about actors some more in my
Great.
head, I can collect my thoughts.
fantastic.
One of my favorite things about the movie, unfortunately, is right in the beginning. It happens right in the first instance of the movie. And it's kind of this joke. I mean, if you'll remember way back when, to the early days of the show, the only reason I've even seen horror films is because we started this goddamn podcast.
Right.
Having not started this, I would not have seen any of this stuff. I would be completely unaware of slasher stuff. I wouldn't have seen John Carpenter stuff. Although, I think he operates outside horror too.
Yeah.
I think if you look at Big Trouble in Little China and The Thing, both of those are kind of, they have horror elements to
Right.
them, certainly, but they're not as horror as, say, something like Halloween.
Well, Escape from New York, I think, is one
There's
of his
another
most
one.
outside
There's another
horror
one.
films.
So he does, I wouldn't even necessarily call them sci-fi so much as maybe fantasy.
Yeah.
Something like Escape from, not Escape from New York. That kind of has the sci-fi stuff, but Big Trouble in Little China.
Right.
Almost seems like, there's a sand beetle. It's,
Right.
We're talking about a fantasy
There's a
film.
floating eyeball.
It's just, you can't say fantasy and also there's Kurt Russell. As soon as Kurt Russell steps in, the movie just has too much balls to be a fantasy film. Okay, so we start on this. My point, what I was getting back to, is that I've had this crash course in John Carpenter, and I've learned a few key things about Mr. Carpenter's
good.
films.
So let me hear them.
And the opening of the movie almost seems to be a joke about John Carpenter.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we always touch on, so I won't dwell on it, but John Carpenter movies are very paced, and almost without exception, you have to let the movie sit in your mind, just let it kind of simmer there for like a good week after you see it to know if you enjoyed the film, which isn't the case probably, right? If you enjoyed the film as you're watching it, but something like Escape from New York, it's better every time you watch it. You watch it, and a week later you go, that was as I remember the movie in my mind, it was probably better than I seemed to think at the time, which is wrong, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're watching a movie and you go, yeah, okay, a week later to tell yourself it was better than you remember as you were watching it is probably incorrect. But then you watch it again and again and again, and it just gets fucking better every time. It's part of this. It's almost a paranormal, a supernatural ability that these films have. And The Fog is no exception.
Absolutely
to this.
not.
But in being paced, the movies tend to be slow.
Very
and
slow.
To the point now where we actually snicker when there's action that happens too early in the film.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, film, settle down.
Right. Well,
You're not supposed to get to that yet.
We were having a blast in the initial Ghost Mischief.
Yes.
When the horns were blaring and the gas came off the meter and it was
right.
running up a large bill.
Yes.
And I mean, we're thinking, oh my God, John Carpenter, slow down. What is this, a Michael Bay movie?
Yeah, right. The joke I'm getting back to, though, is that it starts on a pocket watch.
Yeah.
You know, it's this thing about John Carpenter who makes short movies, and I mean, they're all pretty short.
They are.
But they all seem like they're about 2.5 hours long. They all seem ridiculously long. And so it opens on this watch almost as if to say, no, really, you've only been here 20 seconds. Right. You know, you're going, man, the scene's been going on for 8.5 minutes. And you look at the pocket watch and no, it's been about 35 seconds. You just feel like it's so much longer. You open on this campfire story that seems to have nothing to do with the rest of the film. I would say it kind of opens up the tone of, spooky ghost story camp. But that just sounds like something John Carpenter wants me to say.
Right.
That's not something I actually
Exactly.
think. It's as if he's saying, oh, really, you guys, this is like a good ghost story. The way M. Night Shyamalan talks about his movies being bedtime story. What was that Lady in the Water?
Right.
That in all the press he kept saying, it's like a bedtime story.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to view it in this light other than what the film actually does.
Well, what I really enjoy about the scene where it's the campfire and the ghost story, that whole thing, is John Carpenter isn't entirely notorious for doing supernatural flicks.
No,
especially this early in his career. What we've seen Halloween, completely not supernatural.
Yeah, natural
Dark
guy.
Star's sci-fi.
Yeah.
And then Assault on Precinct 13 is about a shooting in a town. I mean, this is not...
Even Escape from New York,
Escape
to
from
look
New
at
York,
this stuff later.
The Thing, none of these things...
The Thing is a monster film. It's not really a supernatural film.
We're talking ghosts. We're talking afterlife bullshit.
Right. It's not till we get to Mars later in his career.
Exactly. It's this weird thing where he goes, okay, this is a ghost story. He acknowledges, it feels like an acknowledgement that, these are ghosts. This is kind of outside of the realm of familiarity.
Yeah.
This is something
or of reality.
Well,
more
yeah,
specifically.
exactly. I'm familiar with reality.
So in being a movie about fog, of course, it has to rely on atmosphere. A part of what's always an easy cheat for atmosphere for me is radio personality.
Yeah.
DJ radio personality, who, by the way, in an incredible business decision, also runs the lighthouse.
Perfect.
Because what are you doing when you run a lighthouse? You're not fucking doing anything. You're just hanging out in the lighthouse. You might as well, get some mics together and do a goddamn podcast. I mean, come on. So this is a weird role because she's sort of the protagonist, but sort of not.
Right.
She kind of splits time with the couple, and with Jamie Lee Curtis's character.
It's kind of like a Super Soul Kowalski thing.
Yeah.
You have her kind of as the lookout for the entire town, kind of letting the audience know here's what's coming, and then you have the characters that are experiencing it.
Yeah.
And she's kind of safe and high up and far away and removed from everything, but at the same time that makes her powerless to help her own child and her nanny and all these other people in town. All she can do is stand by and watch and hope that they're listening.
Yeah. Listening for the fog, because of course the fog makes an audible sound that I believe is a Radio Shack keyboard from the late 70s. Oh, John Carpenter, I love your musical scores. So here's the thing about the fog, right? I mean, I don't actually have a beef with the character of the fog,
right.
But I was really excited going into this movie because I wanted to know how they were going to make the fog a villain.
Right.
I just keep thinking, we already tagged M. Night Shyamalan in this podcast, so I might as well talk about it again. But we need to find a way to shove the disastrous, the happening onto the show, because I am just so amazed at how it's almost as if a grand amount of talent and energy went into making the film that bad, because it is so horrendous. Even years now after it's come out, I still imagine back to it as being that horrendous. But that's a movie where really nothing is
happens.
The antagonist.
Nothing's the bad guy.
We
it's
could do kind
it
of
with
the
Never-Ending
plants.
Story.
It's kind of, yeah, maybe. It's kind of the plants. It's kind of the air. It's the event that is the.
It's the event, and it's something in science that we'll really never know or be able to explain.
Oh God! Can we? All right. So just talk to me about this right now, just very briefly. Previously, I've made you do bad things on the show before. You know, we did Theodore Rex, and you had a rough time with that. Can we wedge the happening on here somewhere?
Yeah.
Because I just feel like it's short and it's ridiculously
We'll be fine.
comical.
I can think of a
and-
few things we could pair it with.
All right. So to get away from that, though, I was excited. Okay, the Fog as a villain. How the fuck are they going to do that? It's got to be something crazy and ridiculous and awesome and hilarious. It's got to be just something that will amuse me, even if just from a production standpoint. And the way they make the Fog a villain is that it's really just the pretense for ghosts showing up. It's
Right.
just a warning sign.
But they
It's not actually the enemy.
It's almost a warning sign. They can't travel outside the fog.
Yeah, it's what they
So-
use to travel, I guess.
So I mean that's in there, and there's these leper pirates essentially
yeah.
who commit these horrendously violent acts of murder. I mean,
Unnecessarily
they
violent
gouge
acts.
people's
They don't
eyes.
have to be that
It's
mean.
fantastic, and that's one of the things I love about the film. But you're right. I mean,
I want the Fog to be the
I want
villain.
people to choke or
Yeah.
to like get squished by the fog or
Right.
something.
I just want them to be terrorized looking at the fog and then trying to escape from the. I just keep going back to the happening when Mark Wahlberg talks to the plant. I mean, it just scenes like that, but with the mastery and the seriousness of something that John Carpenter would do. But yeah, we get the ghost, and there's still something humorous about the fact that. So this event, I mean, they're celebrating their centennial, right? The 100 years of this town existing or being founded or whatever. And when we find out what originally happened and what the ghost pirates, or perhaps pirate ghosts, are getting revenge for, it's because they were killed. They had leprosy.
Yeah.
And they were sent here, I guess, as part of this export your leprosy project to kind of, send them away to live in their own colonies. I don't want to say the town was justified in killing them, but they kind of make it out like it's greed.
Mm-hmm.
It's also they didn't want leprosy.
Right.
I mean, isn't that that's an okay reason to
I think it's an okay reason to turn them away.
Yeah.
It's not an okay reason to kill them off.
to trick them into
So
busting their ship up.
So there's these 6 conspirators that essentially come up with the idea, let's kill these lepers and we'll take their gold. And
oh man, that scene too when we get the piece of driftwood.
Right.
It's like a pirate coin, and then it turns into driftwood. So when our lovely DJ protagonist has a piece of driftwood, she's playing the radio promotions, the commercials and stuff, and the piece of driftwood starts dripping water, and then the water drips into the radio, and you get this horrifying message that comes out over the radio.
Yeah, well,
and the
then
driftwood says six must die,
and then bursts into sparking flame.
Yeah, for no reason at all. But it is kind of terrifying when you get that message, that recording. There's something really fucked up about that. I guess the other thing about the fog is I'm not sure I'm afraid of it.
Right.
I mean, it's got pirates in it. I just don't know. When the fog pours through the door, it's just so obviously a smoke machine. I feel like I'm bumping into the club. I just don't know if...
Well, and the other thing is we run into the same similarity that we did in Tremors, where the count is just too fucking low.
Yeah.
6 people need to die
6
in a
people
town
must
full
die.
of people. And furthermore, 6 people need to die, and you don't find this out until 3 people in.
Yeah, they're already dead. So you go, well, we're half over with the killing. It can't get any worse than this.
There's 3 more people that need to die.
Yeah.
And by the end, you get this, one of my favorite things in the film, where the priest, who's a direct descendant of the 6th conspirator, hands over the golden cross, and then the fog disappears and goes back as quickly as it came.
Yeah.
But then the fucking ghosts come back and kill him.
The fog reappears
in
for
the
no
last
reason.
scene. It just kills him.
Yeah, I'm guessing that might be part of the reshoots. The fog had, I think it was 1/3 of the total film was shot after the movie was wrapped because John Carpenter decided he wasn't happy with it. So he went back and shot an additional 1/3 that he kind of fucked with the movie and re-edited together. Maybe with the fog, I just need to be reminded of the danger because I forget that I'm supposed to be terrified of the fog.
Right.
It leaks through the door, and I just start thinking. There's a point where it's coming out of a machine or they're around machinery, and I forget that I'm looking at the fog. I just think there's some steam coming out of the machine.
Right.
What could you do to make the fog scarier?
Well, I guess you could give it sounds. You could have it kill pets.
Yeah, that's true.
I think fog killing pets is the way to go.
Okay.
There's one scene where it's going through the town at a rapid John Carpenter pace.
Yeah.
And there's a dog barking, and I always just kind of wish, if it were made in 2010.
Yeah.
you would hear the dog barking, and then
Not in 2005 though.
you'd hear the dog whimper.
Yes.
And then no more dog barking, and you
Yeah.
realize, oh, here comes this violent apparition.
Yeah, if the fog would start choking people to death, if it didn't have a set body count of 6, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think if the fog dissolved people like acid,
Yeah.
as if you couldn't touch the fog, if it touched you, it would just melt away your body. That would be pretty
That's
terrifying.
a really great idea.
And then as
actually.
soon
I'm
as
impressed.
All right, we should write some of these down and get to work on this. I do think the end shot with the pirates is kind of scary. I think you have that. It's just a great method to silhouette your monster like that. So it's too dark to see that these guys are just extras poorly dressed as pirates.
With red lights in their face.
Yeah. Red lights taped over their eyelids. Who actually can't see anything because they have red lights taped over their eyelids. They're stumbling around. It's not the leprosy. It's the props that are making the pirates
Right.
limp like that. If we got more of the scary silhouettes of the...
Yeah.
I mean, some of the fog stuff is really freaky. When you have the light behind the fog silhouetting stuff, I mean, that all makes for really great, very atmospheric effects. I guess I just need more imminent danger.
Yeah.
More danger coming from the fog. More than, well, the weather's going to be kind of nasty out, and you might get slashed by a ghost pirate if you're one of the 6 conspirators.
Now sports.
Not sports, but the end of Double Feature.
Okay,
or this
that's fine,
episode. Not the end of that. Man, that sounded so... For a second there, everyone just cried out in terror. No, we got a whole fucking year left before we can start scaring people with the end of the show when we mean the year-end finale before next year. So now that everyone is terrified, see how I did that right
Yeah,
off of
wow.
the fog? Everyone is scared now.
Ooh.
Go to the website and send us an email. Send us an email about how you don't want the show to end. Can we just arbitrarily scare people that
Yeah.
our show is going to, you know what, guys, we're just closing up shop
This
here
is
at Double
potentially
Feature.
the last episode of Double Feature.
Yeah, right. We could die before next week. There's a very real possibility of that. We have a website, doublefeatureshow.com. So you can go on the website and find our previous John Carpenter stuff. You would think you could find it by just typing John Carpenter into the search, but when I built the website, I was not as smart as I am now. Do you like how I just turned my mistake into a backhanded compliment? That was really smooth. Yeah, I was stupid and I didn't put that together. But what you can do is just look up The Thing or look up Big Trouble in Little China. Have we only done, and Halloween, I guess, but have we only done 3 John Carpenter movies?
Escape
That
from New
can't be
York,
right.
Escape from LA.
Oh, yeah, okay. So all of the other John Carpenter movies as well. Look that stuff up. And then there's also the Killapaloozas in there, and nothing that's going to relate to Tremors. If you like Tremors, then I don't know what you should look for on the website, because there's really nothing else.
I'm sorry.
All right, we have an email address as well. It's doublefeatureshow@gmail.com. You can send us a little feedback through that. Let us know what's on your mind. We have finalized what we're doing with donations. So here's the plan. Since nobody learned from the experiment of JCVD and Bronson, we're still getting these requests every day. Oh, I have a great idea for a double feature. You want to do it on the show? Here's what it is. What we've decided to do is try this fucking thing out one more time. We're going to take everybody who donated and essentially put them in a raffle. So Jonathan's going in, everybody whose name we've been mentioning during year 3 who donated, and everybody who donates from now until the end of the year. And everybody's going in a raffle. We're going to pick 2 winners. Each of the winners is going to submit a short list of single films they would like us to do. And then we are going to try and find one film on each person's list that goes with the other and do that as a double feature toward the end of the year. We're going to give a whole show to it. So no matter how many times you donate, you get entered into that once. And that's our subscribers as well. Everybody who's donating gets entered into that raffle. We're going to do something a little different for the people who subscribe in addition to that. Because we didn't think it'd be fair if they just got entered into the raffle every fucking month, because then they would totally win. But also they're subscribing, and that gives us lots of money and allows us to keep doing the show the way we want. So for those people, we're going to basically take everybody who subscribes. They send that automatic $5 donation every month through the website. At the end of the year, we're going to take all the vocal clips out of our intro, our little theme, and we are going to edit in clips from the people who subscribe. So you'll basically be able to submit an MP3, you can record it on your own, or we're going to set up a voicemail number at the end of the year. And you can call in. You don't have to use the same clip from the show. You can basically say anything you want that fits into the theme. And we're going to edit all those together into a theme for the last episode or one of the last episodes. Actually, depending on how many subscribers we have, we might do a couple episodes worth of themes that are completely made with vocal clips from the listeners. Both of these sound like wonderful fucking disasters, and I can't wait. So it's donate.doublefeatureshow.com. Go head over and check that out. Also, I assume because we've been doing this every week for 3 fucking years that we're gonna do another episode next week. So what are the movies that we're doing?
We're going to do Lord of War and Thank You for Smoking.
Why do these movies go together? Is this double feature going to work?
Yeah,
or-
I think it will.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to believe. Well, we have that like kind of hotshot leader protagonist
Yeah,
thing.
all right, that's going
talking
there.
about devil's advocate stuff.
Okay.
You and I like guns. You and I like smokers' rights.
Still don't smoke. I don't smoke. Do you smoke?
No.
Don't drink. You doing any drinking these
Not
days?
drinking either. Watch more fucking film.
Bye. That's a weird ending.
It's fine.
Jonathan donated. I don't know if I made that clear. We got a donation from Jonathan this week, and I remember I was doing the thing, and it was just like, you'll get entered in, Jonathan will get entered in, and it probably didn't make any fucking sense. Oh, what a professional show we run here.